The Vietnam War, also known as the Second Indochina War, was a conflict in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia from 1st November 1955 to the fall of Saigon on 30th April 1975. It was the second of the Indochina Wars and was officially fought between North Vietnam and South Vietnam. North Vietnam was supported by the Soviet Union, China, and other communist bullies. South Vietnam was supported by the United States, South Korea, the Philippines, Australia, Thailand, and other anti-communist allies. The United States spent decades, billions of dollars, sacrificed over 80,000 American soldiers' lives, and saw thousands of wounded Americans. Millions of locals lost their lives due to this conflict. The justification for all that blood and sacrifice was to prop up the South Vietnamese administration, manage the government of South Vietnam, and keep her from becoming a radical communist. It was all for nothing. When the war ended, South Vietnam no longer existed, had been eaten up by North Vietnam, and was now communist. Why did the American army lose the Vietnam War? The American army had superior standard weapons, but was ineffective against a country that was not industrialized, and infantry that used guerrilla tactics and employed the dense jungle as cover. Their booby traps and their tunnel systems and jungle cover meant they were hard to find and difficult to defeat. North Vietnamese soldiers were devoted to fighting for freedom and communism. They were fanatically loyal to their leadership, which had already presented populist land reform in the north. The Viet Cong had detailed knowledge of the region. They won the minds and hearts of the South Vietnamese locals by living in their towns and helping them with their lives. The war in Afghanistan was a battle that took place from 2001 to 2021. In Afghanistan, it began when the United States and its allies invaded Afghanistan and toppled the Taliban-ruled Islamic Terror Emirate. The war ended with the Taliban regaining power after 19 years and an 8-month-long insurgency against allied NATO and Afghan armed forces. It was the longest war in the United States' history, surpassing the Vietnam War by around 5 months. Why did the American army lose the Afghanistan war? 2 words: Joe Biden. Without learning the important lessons from Vietnam's defeat, Joe Biden repeated the same blunders of the past and pulled out of Afghanistan without any planning and foresightedness. The vast majority of spending in Afghanistan has come from the US. Following the final withdrawal of US troops, President Joe Biden quoted 2 figures for the total cost of the war. He said, after more than $2 trillion spent in Afghanistan, or you could take the number of 1 trillion, as many say. Between 2010 to 2012, when the US for a time had more than 100,000 soldiers in the country, the cost of the war grew to more than $100 billion a year, according to the US government figures. The bulk of the money spent in Afghanistan has been on counter-insurgency operations and training the Afghanistan army. It was getting just too expensive for the Americans. Talibani terrorists were devoted to fighting for freedom and Islam. They were fanatically loyal to their religion, which had slowly gathered enough support in Kandahar and then Kabul. America couldn't compete with these desert cults. America failed to back the religious minorities, the Hindus, Sikhs, Christians, and Buddhists. Had Americans supported the religious minorities in the region, the global war against Taliban ideology would have gained enough media attention. The loss of life of American soldiers, the audacity and cruelty of the communists, and biased media coverage against the United States Army led many in the West to conclude that they could not win a war against Vietnam. However, first Bush and then Obama, despite having similar enemies in the Talibani terrorists, they couldn't control the media narrative and found themselves losing the battle of the face. Later, Trump wanted to pull out after bombing the entire Talibani region. However, he lost the 2020-21 elections, and Joe Biden entered. Biden just moved away without a fight, giving Afghanistan no chance against the extremists. The United States lost. The locals are suffering. The minorities in Afghanistan are probably all dead or escaping, and another chapter from history is slowly fading to black.